Before I tell you what happened the day I watched my family cheer for my brother's failure, while my diploma sat in my car, and how going completely silent made them fall apart, tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? And one more thing, has anyone ever told you that you'd be fine, so they gave everything they had to someone else? My name is Emma. I'm 26 years old. And for most of my life, I was the daughter my family knew would figure it out on her own. That sounds like a compliment. I used to think it was. I used to hold it like a trophy. Emma's the responsible one. Emma doesn't need much. Emma will be fine. I repeated those words to myself in the dark of my childhood bedroom, while my brother Tyler got the bigger bedroom because he was, as my mother put it, more sensitive to his environment. I repeated them when my parents flew to Nashville to watch Tyler's band perform at a bar with 40 people in it, and couldn't make it to my college orientation 2 states away because the drive was too long. I repeated them so many times that somewhere along the way, I stopped questioning whether they were actually true and started building my entire life around proving them right. I got a full academic scholarship to a university 4 hours from home. My parents contributed nothing toward my education, not because they couldn't, but because, as my father explained with complete sincerity, Tyler was the one who needed the support right now. Tyler had dropped out of community college his second semester. Tyler was pursuing music. Tyler had dreams that required nurturing. I had a scholarship, which apparently meant my dreams had already been handled. I didn't argue. I packed my own boxes. I drove myself to school in a 2009 Honda Civic with a check engine light that had been on for 2 years. I worked 20 hours a week at the campus library and another 6 hours on weekends doing online tutoring. I studied harder than I had ever studied in my life, not just because I loved what I was learning, but because I knew with a bone-deep certainty that there was no safety net. If I fell, I would hit the ground. No one was watching to catch me. 4 years later, I graduated with honors. A 3.91 gigapascals, a degree in finance, a job offer already signed before I walked across the stage. I called my mother the night before graduation. I told her the ceremony started at 10 in the morning. I reminded her I'd sent the details 3 weeks earlier. There was a pause on the line, the kind of pause I had learned to translate over a lifetime of phone calls with her, and then she said, "Oh, honey, I was actually going to call you about that." Tyler had gotten a call back. A small recording studio in Nashville had heard one of his demos and wanted to meet with him. The meeting was the same day as my graduation. My parents had already booked their drive down. You understand, right? This could be his big break. You know how hard he's worked for this. I sat in my car in the parking lot of my apartment for a long time after that call. The sky was getting dark. I had a dress hanging on the back of my door. I had a cap and gown in a plastic bag on my kitchen chair, and I had just been told, in so many words, that my brother's maybe opportunity outweighed my certain accomplishment. I said, "I understand." And I did. I understood perfectly. I just finally understood something different than what she meant. The next morning, I walked across that stage alone. My roommate, Danny, sat in the audience and screamed my name so loud that the people around her laughed. My supervisor from the library had come. My academic advisor was there. 7 people who were not my family watched me accept that diploma, and when I held it up, Danny lost her mind, completely standing on her seat, 2 fingers in her mouth, whistling like we were at a football game. I laughed, a real laugh, the kind that surprised me. After the ceremony, I took photos with Danny and her parents, who had driven 4 hours to watch their daughter graduate, and somehow made room to fold me into every single picture. Her mother kept straightening my collar and saying, "You look so beautiful, sweetheart." And I had to look up at the sky twice to keep my eyes from doing something embarrassing. My phone had 3 texts from my mother. The first said, "Good luck today," with a star emoji. The second said Tyler's meeting had gone really well. The third was a photo of my parents and Tyler sitting at a restaurant in Nashville, smiling, my father's arm around my brother's shoulders, and my mother had captioned it, "So proud of this kid. Big things coming." I put my phone in my purse. I drove to a nice restaurant by myself, still in my cap and gown, and I ordered the salmon and a glass of white wine, and I sat at a table for one by a window, and I watched people walk by on the street outside, and I made a decision. Not an angry decision. Not a dramatic one. Just a quiet, clear, final one, the way you decide to close a book you've already read the ending of. I was done performing the role of the daughter who was fine. I didn't send a long message. I didn't write a letter. I didn't call and cry or demand an apology or explain what they had done because explaining would have required them to understand, and I had spent 22 years waiting for that understanding, and it had never come. So I said nothing. I just stopped. I stopped calling on Sundays. I stopped texting to check in. I stopped asking how Tyler's music was going. I stopped sending updates about my job, my apartment, my life. When my birthday came in October, I made plans with Danny and 2 friends from work and had the kind of evening I actually wanted: dinner, then a bar with good music, then someone's living room with wine and cards until 1 in the morning. My mother called that night and left a voicemail. I listened to it the next day. It was 43 seconds long, and mostly about how Tyler had gotten food poisoning, and she'd been at the hospital with him, and it had been such a stressful week. But happy birthday, Han. Call me back when you can. I did not call back. The holidays came. I told my manager at work that I was available over Thanksgiving and Christmas if anyone needed coverage, and I worked both. I made real money in holiday pay. I ate Thanksgiving dinner with Danny's family again, and Danny's father, a retired high school principal named Robert, asked me about my new job and listened to the whole answer. Asked follow-up questions, remembered details from the last time we'd talked, and treated my thoughts like they were worth something. I cried in the car on the way home, and I wasn't entirely sure why, except that I think I was grieving something, the version of my childhood that could have looked like that. By January, my mother had left 11 voicemails. My father had left 2. Tyler had sent a meme in our old family group chat in December that I didn't react to. My mother had texted, "Emma, we feel like something's wrong. Can you please just let us know you're okay?" I replied, "I'm okay. Nothing more. I want to be honest with you about something, because I think it matters, and I think a lot of people watching this will understand it." Going quiet wasn't revenge. I know it might look like that from the outside, and maybe there's a part of me that won't pretend there was zero satisfaction in it. But mostly, it was survival. Mostly, it was me finally choosing to spend my energy on things and people that filled me up, instead of hollowing me out. I was building something. A real life. An actual one. My job was in financial planning at a mid-size firm, and I was good at it not because I had been handed anything, but because I had spent 4 years learning to stretch every dollar and every hour until it yielded something. I understood scarcity. I understood ROI in a way that felt personal. My manager, a sharp woman named Claire, who had started at the same firm at 23 and worked her way to director, told me in my 6-month review that I had the instincts for this work, and she wanted to fast-track my development. I stayed late. I asked questions. I made myself indispensable in small ways that accumulated into something larger. By spring, I had paid off the last of my credit card debt from college. I opened a Roth IRA. I started a 6-month emergency fund. These are not glamorous milestones. No one threw a party for them. But I sat at my kitchen table on an ordinary Tuesday in April and looked at my bank account and felt something I can only describe as solid: a foundation under my feet, built entirely by my own hands, and no one could take it from me. In March, my aunt, my mother's younger sister, Karen, called me. She was the only person in my extended family I had ever really trusted. She had always been different from my mother, quieter, more observant, the kind of person who noticed things and sat with them before speaking. She said, "I'm not calling to pressure you. I just want you to know that I see what happened. I saw it for a long time, and I didn't say enough, and I'm sorry for that." I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I said, "Thank you." She asked if I was doing okay. I told her genuinely, not as a performance, that I was doing better than I had in years. She said she believed me. She asked if she could stay in my life, separately, not as a messenger for my parents. I said yes. Then she said something that has stayed with me. She said, "Your mother grew up being the one who needed saving too, you know. My parents gave her everything and expected nothing from me because I seemed like I'd be fine." I watched her carry that pattern into her own family, and I never figured out how to stop it. I didn't say anything. She said, "That doesn't make it right. I just thought you might want to know where it came from." I thought about that for a long time. I still think about it. It didn't change what had happened. It didn't make the Nashville photo hurt less. But it added a layer, a sad, complicated, human layer, to a story I had been telling myself in clean, clear lines of right and wrong. My mother hadn't invented this. She had inherited it. She had been the overlooked one once too. And instead of breaking the cycle, she had just moved to the other side of it, and somehow never noticed she'd brought a child along to the side she'd left. Understanding that didn't mean I owed her my presence, but it meant I could stop hating her, which, as it turns out, was something I needed more than she did. In May, my father called from a number I didn't recognize. He must have known I'd stopped picking up from his regular phone, and I answered by accident. There was a pause when I said hello, like he hadn't expected me to pick up either. He said, "Emma." I said, "Hi, Dad." Long silence. Then, "We miss you." I sat with that. I believed him. I don't think my father is a bad man. I think he is a man who took the path of least resistance inside his marriage for so many years that he eventually forgot he had ever chosen it. He let my mother set the emotional thermostat for our family, and for whatever reason, his own history, his own fears, his own blind spots, Tyler was always warmer. I said, "I know." He said, "Is there anything we can do?" And I thought about that question, really thought about it, the way I hadn't let myself do in months. Because thinking about it meant feeling it, and I said, "I need you both to understand what happened at my graduation. Not to apologize to make yourselves feel better. To actually understand what it meant." He didn't say anything for a while. Then, "We didn't think you needed us there the way Tyler needed us in Nashville." "I know," I said. "That's the problem." I didn't slam the phone down. I didn't yell. I just said, "I love you, Dad, but I can't keep being the one who doesn't need anything. I do need things. I needed you there. And I've spent my whole life pretending otherwise so that everyone else could be more comfortable." There was a long silence. Then he said, very quietly, "I didn't know you felt that way." And I said, "I know. I never told you, because I was too busy being fine." We stayed on the phone for another 30 minutes. It wasn't a fix. It wasn't a reconciliation. He didn't have all the right words, and I didn't expect him to. But it was the first real conversation I could remember having with my father in years, maybe ever, and when I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment and felt something shift. Not much, but something. My mother called 2 weeks later. She didn't try a different number. She left a voicemail that was, for the first time, not about Tyler. It was about her. About growing up feeling overlooked. About how she had tried so hard to be sure Tyler never felt the way she had. About how she now understood these were her words, that in trying to fix my own childhood, I gave you mine instead. I listened to that voicemail 4 times. I didn't call back that day, or the next. I sat with it. I talked to my therapist about it, yes. I had started therapy 8 months earlier, and it was the best money I had ever spent. My therapist, a calm woman with an office full of plants, said something like, "It sounds like she's doing real work. That doesn't obligate you to open a door, but it might be worth deciding what kind of relationship, if any, you'd want on your terms." On my terms. I had never in my life constructed a relationship with my family on my terms. I thought about what I actually wanted. Not what I was supposed to want. Not the family reunion fantasy. Not the closure scene from a movie. What I actually wanted. And the answer, when I let myself be honest, was not nothing. It was something smaller and more specific. I wanted to be seen as a person who had accomplished real things and suffered real losses and was worth showing up for. I wanted the calls to be about me sometimes. I wanted to not feel invisible at my own table. So I called my mother back, and I said, "I heard your message. I'm not ready to pretend everything is normal, but I'm willing to try something different, if you are. Slowly. With honesty. She said, yes, please, whatever you need. That was 4 months ago. We talk now. Not every week. Not the way other daughters and mothers might. Carefully, slowly. She asks about my work and listens to the answer. She called me last month just to tell me she'd bragged about my job to someone at her book club and realized she didn't know enough details to brag properly, and could I fill her in? I laughed. It was a small moment, but it was the first time I could remember her seeking me out for something that was entirely about me. Tyler and I have not spoken. His Nashville meeting didn't lead to a record deal. He's back home, working at a restaurant, still playing music on weekends. I wish him well genuinely. He was a beneficiary of a broken system, not the architect of it, but we are strangers in the way that people who were never really introduced can be strangers, and I don't feel urgency to change that right now. I turned 26 last October. My mother and father sent flowers to my apartment, real ones, in a vase, with a card that my mother had clearly spent time on. My father had added a line in his own handwriting at the bottom. It said, "We should have been there. I'm sorry. I love you." I put the card on my bookshelf. It's still there. I want to say something to whoever is watching this, and recognizing pieces of their own life in it, because I know you're out there. I know, because every time a story like this gets told, the comments fill up with people who have been the responsible one, the fine one, the one who never needed anything, the one who was expected to figure it out alone while someone else got the room, the trip, the attention, the party. You were not too easy to love. You were not so self-sufficient that you didn't need anyone. You were just surrounded by people who mistook your resilience for a reason not to show up, and then were surprised when resilience eventually became distance. Here's what I know now, at 26, in an apartment I pay for with a career I built. Silence is not the same as being fine. Leaving is not the same as giving up. And sometimes, the only way to teach people what you're worth is to stop accepting what they've been offering and wait to see if they can do better. Some of them can. Some of them will surprise you. And some of them won't, and knowing that, really knowing it without needing it to be different, is its own kind of freedom. If this story hit something for you, tell me in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, what time it is, and whether you've ever been the one your family counted on to be fine. I read everything. And I want you to know, whatever you write down there, that you are not alone.